What happens when a family gathers to sort through a dead man's estate and uncover secrets no one was ready for? Find out in Appropriate, now playing at the Only Theater Center. From Tony Award-winning playwright Brendan Jacobs Jenkins, critics have called Appropriate part family sitcom, part sibling deathmatch, part socio-political gut punch, and a masterclass in gritty, unrestrained performance. Audiences are loving it too, so much so that it's been extended through April 26th. But seats are going fast, so don't miss it. Visit onlytheater.org to grab yours before they're gone.
The French have a phrase, joie de vivre, the joy of living. Alliance Française brings that joy through French language classes, culture, and community straight to you. Classes start May 2nd, but first, try a free Zoom class the week of April 20th. No commitment, no excuses. Early bird pricing ends April 17th. Visit francedc.org and sign up today. Today on CityCast DC, the DC area lost 56,000 jobs in 2025. That's the worst performance of any major metro area. So how scared should that make you? According to Tracy Haddon Low of the Brookings Institution, the answer is pretty scared. Low leads the DMV Monitor, which studies the regional economy as Donald Trump transforms the federal government. She's here to walk us through our state of municipal health. Today is Tuesday, April 7th. I'm Michael Schaefer. Here's what DC's talking about. Tracy Haddon Low, welcome back.
It's great to be here, Mike.
So you write this DMV Monitor for the Brookings Institution. For folks unfamiliar with it, what is that?
It's a roughly quarterly real-time look across 25 data indicators about how the metropolitan area that is centered around Washington, D.C. is changing in real time as a result of the Trump administration's policies.
So in this issue, which is a grim one, I guess, just like many of your other issues, but in this issue, you talk about the region's job losses. The DMV lost nearly 56,000 jobs in 2025. That's the worst job loss of any major metro in the country. What was your reaction when you saw that number?
To be honest with you, I almost cried. I'm from this area, and I didn't want to be the one to have to tell everyone how bad what was happening is at the macro scale. I think, lots of people in the region know someone who's lost their job. So we all know that it's bad in the sense that we know that people are experiencing, difficulty and distress. But what all these stories add up to at the macro level for the region is really, really bad news. And this is not fun for me.
So you write that 96% of the lost jobs trace back to federal layoffs.
Direct federal employment, that's right.
How many of those 56,000 lost jobs are actual federal jobs?
96%.
Are
people who were directly employed by the federal government.
I see. So that's like 54,000 people who are direct federal employees?
That's right.
And you note that the administration and people who look at how history has worked when there's been previous periods of federal government retrenchment kind of assumed that workers would just pivot to the private sector. It seems like that hasn't happened here.
No. In fact, the trend in what's happening in the private sector is actually, one of the big reasons that we started the DMV Monitor because, we wanted to understand what was going to be happening there in comparison. Our region lost private sector jobs in 2025 as well. And so that is the opposite of the trend in the rest of the country. While, maybe people have seen headlines that, job growth nationally isn't as strong as some people might have hoped it would be, it is still positive. But in our region, it's negative.
So why didn't the private sector growth balance out the federal losses?
So a lot of the private sector in the DMV is related to government demand. like either contractors who directly sell goods and services to the federal government or whose value proposition is in some way like otherwise related to proximity to the federal government. And that value proposition is under direct attack right now.
So, a lot of people assume a lot of the private sector job losses are with federal contractors, with firms that make a lot of their money from Uncle Sam's spending. Is that correct, or were there other sectors that have been hit as a result of what's happened in the last year that are suffering here?
The sector that lost the most jobs was professional and technical services, and so I do think that it's logical to conclude that that's where all of the contractors are going to be, and so I think it's reasonable to conclude that that is the result of lost grants and contracts. But we also saw job loss in retail and in the transportation, trade, and utilities sector. And so there are second and third order impacts here that are just related to what would happen in any region if the region's biggest employer shed a lot of jobs.
Just so I know, what are professional and technical services exactly?
That's going to be everything from lawyers to management consultants to accountants.
In the rest of the country, where obviously federal workers everywhere are losing jobs, but in the rest of the country, are professional and technical services also taking it on the chin, or is that unique to the DMV?
We did not do a sector level analysis for other major metro areas. I actually would expect this to be a growth area nationwide because this sector, professional and business services, this has been the big driver of U.S. economic growth over the last 2 generations. Professional and business services have been growing since the end of World War II. And this is what in pop media is called the knowledge economy. And they're highly educated workers who what they sell is what they do with their mind or with a computer.
So one of the other things that surprised me in your report is you write that the venture capital scene has also dried up fast, unlike the rest of the country. What's going on there? And is that connected to the Trump administration's effect?
So, that's one where I am just guessing that there's a connection because what we see happening nationwide is actually a huge surge in venture capital activity, right? Like there's an almost 20% increase in venture capital flow in major metropolitan areas nationwide. But here in the DMV, we've seen a 35% decline year over year. So the actual gap between us and the rest of the country is over 50 percentage points in terms of the trend. And, that is, the stock market is booming. AI is hot. I think we've all heard about that. The issue is that capital is not flowing to startups within the DMV.
So you have been tracking all of this kind of stuff on DMV Monitor for a while now. What do you have an even clearer picture of now than the first time we talked?
In the first update, we actually weren't sure how bad the federal job loss was going to be because of what's known as the Deferred Resignation Program, or the FORK, which is a reference to the subject line of the email that was sent to all federal workers offering this program.
So they quit in April, but they were still technically on the payroll till September.
They were still getting paid, and so so there was no way to tell from the employment data that they were looking for jobs. So what we didn't know is how many workers were going to opt in to the Deferred Resignation Program. And then we didn't know how many of them were going to view that resignation as a retirement rather than a resignation. Like we didn't know how many of them would, if you surveyed them in November of 2025, tell the person interviewing them that they were looking, that they wanted a job, that they needed a job, that they were looking. So we know now, and the numbers are pretty devastating, right? We've seen a huge surge in unemployment in the DMV. It's concentrated particularly sharply in the District of Columbia, which has at the state level has the nation's highest unemployment rate now.
What is that number? What was it? What is it? What is it in the rest of the country?
The district's unemployment rate is 7.2% as of November 2025. I think there's probably a state level update that's more recent than that, but those are the data that I analyzed for this report. And the country's unemployment rate is, I think, somewhere between 4 and 5. So we are way above.
And what was the district's before all this?
It went up 2 percentage points.
So you write that there isn't a city or region in the U.S. that could withstand a sudden workforce reduction on this scale by the largest employer. Do you think, do policymakers in local Washington fully get this?
I don't think so, because I think that, and I think that's reasonable, because I don't think there was any way to know how many people would opt into the deferred resignation program. And then there was also, there was reason to hope that there would be some private sector job growth, because the DMV is one of only 5 AI star hubs in the United States. And so we should have had the right ingredients to benefit from the huge inflow of investment that's going into AI right now.
The late congressman and civil rights icon John Lewis has always been one of my personal heroes. Maybe you've even seen that beautiful mural celebrating him in Southeast. So I will definitely be honoring his spirit and legacy at one of the hottest shows of the spring that is already selling out fast. Young John Lewis, prodigy of protest, is the electrifying new hip-hop musical taking over the Atlas Performing Arts Center, with over 15 performances already sold out. From award-winning DC playwright Sol Miami 24 and Grammy-nominated Kokai, this is the untold origin story of a true legend. They are taking it back before he was a congressman, back before he made history. Young John Lewis, prodigy of protest, plays March 26th through May 3rd at the Atlas Performing Arts Center. Get your tickets at mosaictheater.org and I will see you there. Life can change faster than DC's seasons. One moment, everything feels normal, and next, your world is turned upside down. So don't let someone else's mistake ruin your spring. Call the team you can count on. NACE Law Group has been standing up for DC families for decades, fighting for neighbors hurt by medical malpractice, wrongful death, and serious injuries. They don't just settle quickly or push papers. They dig in, fight hard, and make sure every client gets the justice they deserve. And here is something that I love. They are a longtime supporter of CityCast, because just like us, they really care about this community and the folks who call it home. So if you or someone that you care about has been hurt, don't wait. Call NACE Law Group. They'll stand with you, fight for your family, and make sure your rights are protected so that you can focus on what matters most.
Spring is here, and it is finally that rare time of year in DC when it's neither too cold nor too hellishly hot to open your windows. So don't miss out. Window Nation's The More You Buy, The More You Save sale is going on now. You could save up to 50% off all windows for your home. Window Nation's installation crews finish the job in 1 day or less, so you can enjoy the breeze with minimal disruption. Best of all, they offer a lifetime warranty on all their windows, so you can relax knowing your home is protected far into the future. Hurry! This sale ends soon. Schedule a fast, free consultation now at windownation.com. So I'm curious about, your research. Are you doing modeling, looking at examples of other areas, other cities where the major industry underwent this kind of massive change, and what happened, what best practices were, what likely outcomes are?
I've definitely been doing a lot of reading and talking to other people, because there are a lot of examples of this just in the United States. And, you don't have to look very far to find them. Like Pittsburgh, I think is a great example, or Detroit. But
both of those are much smaller and poorer cities than they were before the retrenchment of their big industries. They're better than they were, in the 70s and 80s, but
Yeah, the job loss is also much more severe, right? Like when I was growing up, unemployment in Michigan was like 25%. I mean, it was
Right.
really, really bad. Like we are not going through what the Midwest went through during deindustrialization. Um, but we're also not going through what San Francisco is going through, right? Where, San Francisco lost a lot of jobs and foot traffic during the pandemic, but the AI boom has boomeranged for San Francisco, and that's not happening for DC. So there isn't a really direct analogy for what this region is going through, and I have more questions than answers right now about what's next.
So we know the DMV still has some real strengths. There's a highly educated workforce, there's tourism, crime, and some of the sort of things that may have deterred people are down. Are these strengths enough to prevent, looking at the prospect of Detroit or Pittsburgh or something, are they enough to prevent longer term economic hollowing out?
I think so. I think that what we're dealing with right now is basically a question of how bad is it going to get before it starts to get better? And how long is the period of distress and the period of recovery going to be? Because it will really make a difference for the fiscal health of jurisdictions and for the well-being of individual households if this is a really long and drawn out process.
So you said a minute ago that local Washington's officials maybe hadn't grasped the scale of this. If they did, what specifically needs to happen to fix this?
So I think the first and most obvious thing is that we want every jurisdiction in the DMV to be a place where it is extremely easy to start a new business and to be an employer, because we want these workers to be able to both create and find new opportunities. So, creating an environment that is really supportive of dynamism, where it's okay to take a risk and it won't destroy your entire life if the risk doesn't pan out, and where, we make it easy for, people to bring on help and try to build a team. I think that's the number one thing from an economic development perspective that the region needs to do right now. I think there is also some bigger picture stuff about pathways, how people find opportunities, and the region is starting to address some of that stuff. But I think that we also have just kind of some baseline ecosystem building things that we need to do that other places have already done in order to increase our level of dynamism.
Like what kind of stuff?
So, I recently visited the old train station in Detroit, which has actually been converted into like a huge mixed use redevelopment. And one of the things in the redevelopment is it's like an innovation incubator where because like car technology, for example, is something that's changing really rapidly right now. So there is actually a lot of demand for, new and innovative ideas in Detroit. But you don't want the people who can come up with those ideas to feel like their family's going to starve if their idea doesn't pan out. And so creating like incubators and accelerators where people can try out their ideas, get feedback, and then get exposure to investors, so that they can scale their ideas so that they can refine their ideas and then scale them, I think is action item number one. And actually, I was recently in the city of Alexandria, and they told me that they're already in the process of creating a business incubator.
So obviously you're a researcher. You write reports, people read them. You're not a lobbyist, but have you been taking meetings with local leaders about this kind of stuff?
So the DMV Monitor is a partnership with the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments. And I'm working directly every day. COG staff have a lot of expertise in terms of regional data. So they help me with they review every single thing that I do. They contribute analysis to the publications. So I'm working with the staff on a data level, but the board of the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments is elected officials from the local jurisdictions throughout the regions, right? That's the council of governments. So I went to the I want to say February COG board meeting and presented these findings. And I got an avalanche of invitations to visit the councils and boards of supervisors of the local jurisdictions afterwards. I am actually still working my way through all of the invitations I got to, because like a typical board of supervisors will just send one person to COG, and then that one person then invites me to come. So I actually just went to the Prince William County Board of Supervisors the other day in order to present these same findings, zoom in on what's happening in their county in particular, and then to talk about what they're doing and what greater opportunities for regional collaboration there might be.
So listen, I think a lot of people listening to us right now are going to hear a lot of this bad news coming through. How should they be feeling, both about their own prospects and, as individuals, but also about the health of the community in which they live?
My number one thing is that I think people need to feel a sense of urgency. This is bad. What's happening in our region is worse than what's happening in the rest of the country, and our region's heading in a different direction than the rest of the country. And there are structural reasons to believe that things could get even worse, right? There are many signals from the Trump administration that they want to do even more that will specifically and disproportionately impact this region. So given that we know that even more change might be coming, I think we need to feel a lot of urgency about trying to understand what's happening. And given also that this is an election year, this is an opportunity that we can ask candidates about their interest in the topic and their regional relationships, because no one local jurisdiction in the DMV is going to solve what's going on in our regional labor market. We're all going to have to work together.
Tracy, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And that's all for today here on CityCast DC. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our morning newsletter. And become a CityCast DC member. It's just $10 a month or $100 for the whole year. You can do that at membership.citycast.fm. And we will be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye.